Conor McGregor's prime didn't disappear overnight. It slipped away one decision at a time. And that's the part most fans completely miss. Everybody points to the losses. Everybody points to the broken leg. Everybody points to age. But if you really look at Conor's career, the decline didn't start when he lost. It started when he stopped fighting regularly. That's the uncomfortable truth. Because at one point, Conor McGregor wasn't just the biggest star in MMA. He looked unstoppable. He looked inevitable. Every prediction came true. Every left hand landed. Every press conference turned into another highlight reel. It felt like nobody could stop him. So what actually happened? Was it money? Was it inactivity? Was it injuries? Or did the rest of the sport finally catch up? That's the question. And by the end of this video, I think you'll realize the answer isn't nearly as simple as people make it. Let's go back to the beginning. Because if you weren't watching back in 2013, it's almost impossible to understand how quickly Conor exploded. He wasn't just winning, he was predicting exactly how he would win. Then he would walk into the octagon and make it happen. That level of confidence was unheard of. Remember when Conor said he was not here to take part, he's here to take over? At the time, it sounded like marketing. Then he started proving it. One knockout after another, one sold-out arena after another, one viral moment after another. It wasn't hype anymore. It was reality. Then came the fight that changed everything. Jose Aldo, UFC 194. December 2015, 13 seconds. Think about that. The greatest featherweight champion in UFC history. Finished in 13 seconds. That wasn't just a knockout. That became one of the defining moments in combat sports. Conor didn't just win. He became a global superstar. Here's where the story changes. Success changes fighters. Not always physically, sometimes mentally, sometimes financially, sometimes both. Because once you accomplish everything you've dreamed about, motivation becomes harder to manufacture. That's true in every sport. Conor wasn't chasing greatness anymore, he was defending it. And those are completely different mindsets. Here's something people rarely talk about. The climb is usually hungrier than the summit. Now fast forward 1 year. UFC 205, November 2016, Eddie Alvarez, second round TKO. The first simultaneous two-division champion in UFC history. If you watch that fight today, it almost looks unfair. Conor's timing was perfect. His distance management was incredible. Every counter landed clean. Many people believe that was the best version of McGregor we've ever seen. I think they're right. Because after UFC 205, something changed. Not immediately, gradually. The activity slowed, the focus shifted, and that's where the timeline becomes impossible to ignore. Remember when Conor boxed Floyd Mayweather in 2017? Love it or hate it, that event changed everything. It made him wealthier than almost any UFC fighter had ever imagined. It also reduced the urgency to fight several times every year. Again, that's understandable. Anyone in that position might make the same decision, but MMA punishes inactivity. The sport evolves too quickly. New champions emerge, training methods improve, young contenders get better. If you're standing still, everyone else is moving forward. That's why activity matters so much. Then came UFC 229, Khabib Nurmagomedov, one of the biggest fights in UFC history. Conor lost by fourth round submission. That fight became bigger than the result. The rivalry, the emotion, the aftermath. Everything overshadowed the technical discussion. But if you go back and watch it carefully, you notice something. Conor still had moments, he still had timing, he still had accuracy. What he didn't have was sustained momentum. Khabib's pressure never stopped, and that's another pattern we'll see again later. Here's the question. How much of Conor's prime disappeared because of elite opponents? And how much disappeared because he simply wasn't active enough? I don't think enough people separate those two ideas. Then came the Donald Cerrone fight. January 2020, 40 seconds. Vintage Conor, sharp, explosive, confident. For a moment, fans thought the old McGregor was completely back. Maybe he was, or maybe we all overreacted, because one dominant performance doesn't erase years of inactivity. And unfortunately, the Dustin Poirier trilogy answered a lot of difficult questions. The second fight ended with Poirier scoring a second-round TKO in January 2021. The third fight ended after Conor suffered a broken leg in July 2021. Nobody wanted to see it end that way. Fans, fighters, the UFC, nobody. But injuries become part of the story whether we like it or not. And here's where people usually stop the conversation. They say the broken leg ended Conor's prime. I don't think that's accurate. I think the broken leg closed the chapter. The prime had already started slipping before that. Remember when Conor said precision beats power and timing beats speed? That wasn't just trash talk. That was his entire philosophy. The problem is timing depends on repetition. Repetition depends on activity. Activity depends on fighting. That's where the cycle broke. The longer Conor stayed away from the octagon, the harder it became to recreate the rhythm that made him special. And now we arrive at the biggest talking point of all, the 5-year layoff. Whether you're a Conor fan or not, you can't ignore it. 5 years away from elite MMA changes everything. Reflexes, timing, decision-making, confidence under pressure. No amount of sparring perfectly replaces real competition. That's why every comeback discussion becomes so emotional. Fans remember the Conor who dismantled Eddie Alvarez, the Conor who flattened Jose Aldo, the Conor who predicted knockouts before they happened. They want that version back. Who wouldn't? But sports rarely work that way. Time doesn't stop. The division doesn't wait. Young contenders don't pause their development. The game keeps moving. That doesn't mean Conor can't still be dangerous. Far from it. His left hand is still dangerous. His fight IQ is still elite. His understanding of distance remains among the best we've ever seen. But being dangerous isn't the same thing as being in your athletic prime. And that's where I think the conversation needs more honesty. Every legendary athlete reaches a point where experience replaces physical peak. Some adapt brilliantly, others don't. Conor still has the chance to prove he belongs among the elite. But asking him to become the 2016 version of himself again isn't realistic. Nobody stays 27 forever. Not Michael Jordan, not Tom Brady, not Anderson Silva, not Georges St-Pierre, and not Conor McGregor. That doesn't diminish what he accomplished. If anything, it makes those achievements even more impressive. Because for a brief stretch between 2015 and 2016, Conor McGregor wasn't just winning fights. He was changing the entire sport. He changed how fighters promoted themselves. He changed what UFC stars could earn. He changed what confidence looked like. He changed what was possible. That's a legacy very few athletes ever leave behind. So what happened to Conor's prime? It wasn't one punch, it wasn't one injury, it wasn't one loss. It was a combination of success, inactivity, evolving competition, and time. That's what happens to almost every athlete. The difference is most athletes don't have their prime replayed millions of times on YouTube every single day. Conor does. That's why the comparisons never stop. Here's my take. The biggest mistake fans make is asking whether Prime Conor is coming back. I think that's the wrong question. The better question is this. Can this version of Conor still beat elite fighters by adapting his game? Because champions don't always reinvent the past. Sometimes they reinvent themselves. And if Conor can do that, maybe the next chapter becomes just as fascinating as the first. Tell me I'm wrong. Was UFC 205 the last time we truly saw Prime Conor McGregor?